Thank you, Rodrigo, wherever you are, Gustavo and Rick Anthony for donating so much time to put this event on together. Today's a day to be celebrated, and there's been a camera on us, and we've had media event with pictures taken of us, but really I want to celebrate all of you. So if you wouldn't mind, everybody put up your right hand, and on the count of three, if you can say Lixo 0, when I count to 3, and I'm going to take a picture, and I'm going to share this for everybody back in America. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Lixum 0. Thank you. Well, so for about the past 14 years, I've been working with large venues and events. And let's see. Okay. And when I talk about a venue, this could be a sports venue, like a football, maybe a convention center like this, a music center. But when you talk about an event, what do you think of? You think of maybe trying to show how great your community's food is, or your local talent, bringing the community together. But what I think about an event is it provides an opportunity to educate the attendees and the staff about the environment and the different and about conserving resources. And I also think about what you can do, not about what you can't do. Getting to 0 has its challenges, especially in an event setting. So it's not going to happen the first time you go and try and do it at a big event. It takes time, it takes planning, and you have to figure out what you can do, what's available to you, and then eventually you will get to 0 waste. So some of the challenges of designing a 0 waste program at an event or venue is there's a large amount of single-use items because people are on the go. They take their food and they go somewhere. So it presents a big challenge. Another one is a high amount of food discard. People tend to take their food and want to walk around, and so it just generates a lot of food. You have multiple contractors. You have the cleaning contractor, you might have security, you might have management, volunteers. So there's a lot of groups that go into putting on an event. And sometimes, like in Maxine's event that she just showed you, you have a lot of materials that are generated in a short amount of time. And that also presents some challenges. And as well as the diverse attendees and staff. If you're putting on an international event like the Olympics and the World Cup, you have challenges there in educating the attendees and the staff on the program you're trying to implement. And lastly, I did a study in California of various types of events and venues, and we figured out that one person at your event for one day will generate 1.1 kilos. Okay. So 1.1 kilos. And you know what that means? When you host the World Cup, you're going to have over 3 million people here. Each one of them is going to produce 1.1 kilo of waste or materials. Then when you have the Olympics, you're talking about 300,000, 1.1 kilos. It's a lot of material that's going to be coming through. But the good news is those events are 4 and 6 years away. There's a lot of time to start the planning and start it early and start it now. There's been a big movement and a shift, especially over the last 2 years in America. And it's amazing to see how this has grown. We have an organization called the Natural Resource Defense Council, and they put together sustainability plans for our National Basketball League, our National Baseball League, for Broadway, where all of the big, New York Broadway shows. And it's really neat to see how it's evolved. And sustainability plans for air, construction and demolition, energy, paper conservation, transportation, purchasing, waste management, and water quality. Another thing that's happened is we have a national group in America called the U.S. Green Business Council, which promotes green building. They've put together a guide, so if any of you wanted to put on an event, it's a rating guide. You go through their guide, and you can check off how green your venue is. So you could take this guide and take it to this facility and say, okay, do they have recycling? Check. Is it a zero waste facility? Check. And you can determine how green your event can be by how green that facility is. In California, where I come from, I helped prepare a law as well as get this law signed into action in 2004. And this law said that any event in California, whether it was in a venue or a community park or a beach, if you had over 2,000 people, you had to have a recycling plan, and you had to report that plan to your city. So all these things created change. But one important thing about getting to zero is there's two key factors. You have to have a true cooperation between all the stakeholders. That includes the people who are producing the product to the people who are using the product. And the amount of transparency and accountability demonstrated by all these stakeholders. How many pounds are you recycling? Where are these materials going? How well did you do after the event? Today's waste management system is a very linear system, meaning you have the producers who contract to mine the materials, then they design the product, they transport the product to us where we buy them. At that point, a whole nother system, if I can get it, there we go, a whole nother system kicks in. And this is where the government comes in. And they are the ones who are responsible for collecting the material, recycling the material, and getting rid of it. And guess who pays for this system? Me and you and you. We all pay for this system. The two don't speak to each other. The group who's manufacturing the products isn't responsible for the end use of that product or the toxicity of that product, but we are. We have to deal with how to handle that material, and we pay for disposing of that material. But we know there's a better way, a cradle-to-cradle system where we all communicate with each other, where government can talk to manufacturers and have manufacturers be more responsible for the products that they give us, and actually have manufacturers of products help pay and offset this system. And at that point, if manufacturers are involved in the disposal and the recycling and the reuse of the system, then the government can maintain programs and think of new ways to recycle, new ways to reduce. And the reason why I tell you this is because it's important when you're planning an event, because the materials that are coming into your event, we have to figure out what to do with them afterwards, and you have to engage all the stakeholders to have a complete zero waste program. So, like I said, plan early, eliminate waste from the start, have a reuse component. Also, engineer your waste stream. Design your waste stream to be either recyclable or compostable. And every material should be reviewed that's being generated. Procurement and materials management. If you're going to be buying products in your event or venue, have them be green products, products that are better for the environment. Closing the loop, like I just talked about, cradle to cradle, getting all stakeholders involved. Include input from your environmental organizations. There's people out there who are very passionate and care, like Maxine showed with all of our 200 volunteers. About 500 volunteers. Those are people who really care and are into this and are willing to donate their time. So tap into your local resources that you have and demand that your producers are involved with this process. And lastly, I can't stress education and training and blah, blah, blah. You have to be able to train people so that they participate in the program. But if you can control the input, if you can control the materials coming into your event, then you can control how they're recycled and composted. So when we set up systems, it's usually a multi-bin system, and the bins look different from the trash container. I like these ones for special events because they're clear, and it really is a statement. It looks so different from a trash container. And you may have one for paper, one for bottles and cans, one for organic material, and then one that we call landfill. We don't call it waste, we don't call it trash, we call it a landfill because that's where it's going to go, in our land. This is a picture of a composting system, and where I live, we have a very advanced composting facility that can take meat-based products, anything paper, so like the restrooms, all the paper towels, anything that food touches and that the earth has made at one time can be composted in a very advanced composting system. There's a new type of products on the market. Well, they've been around for probably about the last 5, maybe 7 years. They're biodegradable products. So if you have to have a product, a throwaway product, it's better to go with something that can actually biodegrade in a compost facility versus something that just has to go into the trash. So I'm going to touch base on a couple of events just to give you some examples of them trying to go zero. And this is the example of the Winter Games in Salt Lake City back in 2002. So they set up this big recycling system and composting system, and they found that 68% of their waste was actually compostable, and about 18% was recyclable, and another 13% did end up going to the landfill. And this is just another way to look at the same pie. I also work with what we call football, but I know it's not football, American football, the 49ers. It's a professional football team in San Francisco, and I helped to design a zero waste program there. And what we did was they had 66 of these big, we call them 3 cubic yard containers, these big containers, and we decided to color code everything, and we put new colors on the dumpsters that the public could see. And we used blue for recycling, green for organic, and black for trash. And we did the same thing for the public. They had their own trash cans with the same colors. And then behind the house, where the people are making the food and doing security, it was a 3-bin system. And within 1 game of introducing this new system, we recycled close to 60% of the waste stream. Another big part of events is donation, and I think that Maxine also did a great job of showing donation. It's so sad to me to see that how many tons of tents? 168 tons. It's so sad that we've become so disposable that we can just think that we can just leave a tent and just throw it away. It's astounding to me. I also work with the largest number 1, number 2 college American football team. They do a big game every year. It's as big as the Super Bowl. And we do a big donation program because there's lots of parties and special events that lead up to the game. But there's tons of flowers that are left over. There's tons of food that's left over that the public never touched. And we connect to 2 different homeless shelters because we have so much food and so many flowers left over that we have to work with 2 different ones. And we just donate tons of food after the event is over. And the flowers, it was pretty amazing when I went to the homeless shelter and they received the flowers because these people who lived here have never received flowers before. They received other things, but they got flowers that they could put in their facilities or where they live, so they're very happy about that. I've done what's called a waste characterization study, where you actually look at what's inside the waste stream, and it's a way to help you get to zero because you can see exactly what you want to avoid in purchasing. And so what you do is you throw the waste on the ground. Looks like that after an event. And then you pick it up, and you pick it up by certain material type. So you might pick up paper in one group, newspaper, styrofoam, and you put them in their own container, and you go through this, and the waste can be one of about 66 items that we identified. So you go through and you input the material, and you figure out how many pounds you just generated of each material type, and it gives you a good composition of what's going on in your waste stream. When we did this for an event, it's called the Strawberry Festival in California. The event takes place in an area that produces the most strawberries in California. So the event's all about celebrating strawberries and the agriculture. We found that over half of what was going into the trash was recyclable, and about 36% of it was organic, and about 10% of it was truly waste. We didn't have a category to put it in, so we just had to put it in waste. So what that told us is we got to figure out that 10% and not buy it. Don't buy it. If you can just stick to the other parts, that's how you get to zero waste. This is just another look at the same pie of what the recyclables were made up of. So this year, we're implementing a big composting program where we're going to use compostable bags to collect anything organic at the Strawberry Festival. There's a local composting facility close to this festival, and we're going to go ahead and make compost out of it and use that compost on the strawberry fields for next year's event. And it's all local. It's not going out of the city. It all stays together. So, in closing, how do you get to zero? You get to zero by closing that gap on waste, eliminating it if it's not recyclable or compostable. You have to design your waste system to either be recyclable or compostable. Do environmental purchasing, making sure that you have green products coming into your door. Increase participation and education and outreach, as well as identifying sponsorship funds. The funny thing about sponsorship is who's usually the sponsors of a big event? Like let's say your World Cup. Who's going to be the sponsors? Maybe Nike or Adidas, maybe Coca-Cola. The people who are trying to sell us things and market their products, they should be responsible and help fund these programs. So look for ways to use that sponsorship, and I've called it a green sponsorship, but they should be responsible in helping us manage how to get to zero waste and help us be a part. They should be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. Thank you.